Kirsty Lee has a green soul and an empty wallet. Long before she bought into Melbourne's reservoir 1 year ago, she dreamt of an environmentally sustainable home and the cheaper power bills that would accompany it.
The whole time I was renting, I was saving with this goal in mind of owning a home and being able to make those changes that you can't make when you're a renter, of like insulation and solar panels and good blinds on the windows to keep out the heat.
But her young son fell ill, so she reduced her hours at work to care for him.
I'm one of those people who tracks our budget and we're in the red every week. So every bill that comes in, I wonder how we're going to pay it. And I think all month about how we're going to reduce that bill next time, for sure.
So for now, the low-carbon life is out of reach.
It feels frustrating that because of that circumstance, I can't afford solar panels. When my son is not sick, I'll be able to afford to pay that off. It would just be nice to reap the benefits now when I really need it.
She'd be first in line for any help to run a greener, cheaper home, like a plan touted by environmentalist and inventor Saul Griffith.
We are proposing a scheme for the government to help every Australian household finance the electrification of that household. So that's solar and a battery, which Australians are pretty familiar with, but it's also the electrification of the water heater, the space heat, installing a vehicle charger.
A typical household might need $20,000 to replace gas cookers, ovens and water heaters and install solar and batteries, and at least $40,000 to buy an electric car.
Fossil fuels are expensive to buy them every year, but the renewable and the electrification technologies are expensive up front. So you need finance to make sure that everyone has access to be able to buy them.
Saul Griffith's Electrify Everything scheme is loosely modelled on another national plan for a higher cause, the HECS scheme that helps students pay for university. And while HECS repayments are triggered by an income threshold, the Electrify repayment would be due when the home is sold.
You can pay it back as soon as you like, but it comes due when the property transfers. So when you sell the property, that's when the government gets paid back.
A budget submission from Saul Griffith's Rewiring Australia group says its scheme, including the loans for electric vehicles, would cost $2.8 billion in setup costs to hand out up to $160 billion in loans. The newly electrified households would save up to $5,000 each year in power and petrol bills.
If you take this loan, you're paying the lowest possible interest rate and it helps you start saving money on your bills immediately.
Economist Nikki Hutley is all for electrification. She installed solar in her own home years ago and tracks her savings via an app.
I can see at any one time what's been happening.
But she's cautious about a rapid national electrification scheme involving millions of homes.
Of course, if you suddenly had everyone trying to get household batteries or solar or even cooktops, you'd find there would pretty quickly be supply chain issues that would be inflationary. So this needs to happen slowly. So that's a potential problem.
There are already schemes in place that encourage people to move away from gas and install solar.
We need to be very careful that we aren't having overlapping policies that are going to cost us more than they need to.
And some banks offer low or zero interest loans for green energy. They're just not available to people like Kirsty Lee.
I'm not a good prospect for those loans. I'm already, just as a single mum with a low income, I always work for non-profit. I'm lucky to even own my own home. Being able to extend my finance to afford things that would actually make it easier for me to pay the loans, to be honest. If I had solar panels, my costs would be lower. But those things aren't really achievable for me.
There's a risk too that landlords who spend $20,000 on solar and batteries will pass that cost on in higher rents.
They absolutely will do that. And if you could legislate this, you could say that the landlord could only pass on the maximum of the cost that they've had to bear.
The electrification scheme would be available to everyone, regardless of their income.
We do need to electrify as much as possible. We do need to get homes as part of that solution, but we need to make sure that it's means tested, that it goes to people who need it most.
For the small part of the program that people might argue is subsidising rich people to get Teslas, what we're also at the same time smashing our emissions and helping the lowest income and the neediest Australians save money on their bills.
We want solar, right? We want everyone to have solar. We have renewables targets to meet. I don't see the problem with everyone having access to it. I don't care if all the rich people in the world have access to it. I just want to have access to it too, so that we can pay it off when my kids are older and I can work full time and reap the benefits from it now when we need it.